Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Yevamos Tzadik Dalad. We are 11 lines from the top of the Amud and back to the question of the Eid Echad. So one single witness comes and testifies that an Isha is potter from Yibum. We know that her husband passed away without children. We know there was a brother, a potential Yavam, waiting on the wings. One aide comes and says, well, that Yavam, let's call him Shimon, passed away, and this Isha, Rachel, who was formerly married to Reuven, who passed away, is not a Yevama. She's not in need of Yibum. Is he believed or not? Now, why would I think not? Why is this different than the whole story in the Mishnah where the Eshes Ish went and remarried based on the testimony of an Eid Echad? Well, here perhaps there's a personal side to things as well. Maybe she has personal dislike to the Yavam, and this will perhaps discourage her from really thoroughly checking out this information. She might just make a superficial check. Okay, he's not around, let me move on, marry out. Because she prefers not marrying the Yavam whom she knows for many years. So perhaps that would discourage her from really investigating the matter thoroughly, and therefore the Eid Echad cannot be trusted, because after all, his ne'emanus, the fact that we trust an Eid Echad, is based, for the most part, on the fact that the Isha is daika uminsaba. We know that the Isha will not risk getting herself into hot water down the road, so therefore she'll look into the matter carefully and investigate and conclude and confirm the facts. Perhaps when it comes to avoiding the Yavam, she might not do such a good job because she's motivated to avoid him. So what's the halacha? Says the Gemara 11 from the top. Amali Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi. V'amri, some say it was Rav Acha who told Rav Ashi. Toshma, here's the raya. Eino isha ne'emenes loymar meisivami. An isha can't come along and say, you know what? Shimon, the potential Yavam, passed away. She'enose, which allows me to go marry out. She's not believed. Nor is she believed if she comes and she says as follows: V'loy meisa achoisi. She's not believed to say that my sister passed away. She'ekonis lebesa, which enables her to go and marry her sister's husband. So that's the halacha. She has no ne'emanus. Now let's make a diuk. Hai nihi deloy mehemna. She is not believed. There's no ne'emanus on the isha in these cases, because perhaps she has some sort of motive. But ha'ed echad mehemen. A single aid comes along and tells her these things. Tells her that her Yavam died, she no longer needs Yibum. He is believed. Only the Isha herself, who's personally involved but a stranger, is believed. Says the Gemara Tameich. According to your way of learning, Amos Seifa, let's proceed to the second part of the Brisa, which says like this. A man is not to be believed when he comes and says, my brother passed away, which would enable me to be miyabim his wife. He's not believed. Nor can he say, well, my wife passed away, which allows me to marry your sister. And let's make the same inference, the same diuk. Who knew the Mehemen? Apparently he himself, who is a personally involved, he's a player, he can't be believed. But if such a stranger, a non-involved individual, he's believed. If he comes and says these things, is that true? That's incorrect. Because Bishleima Gabi Isha, surely when an Eid Echad comes to allow an Isha to remarry by saying that her husband passed away, the case in the Mishnah, there's a reason for that. Why do we believe him? Mishum Iguna. Akilu Barabanan. We believe him to release the Isha from her igun, from her shackles. Otherwise she can't remarry. So the Eid Echad is trusted in this case, out of necessity. It's a shasat chak. But in this case, where it's the man who's trying to benefit from the Eid Echad's testimony, a man technically can marry two wives. Go find somebody else. That's not considered igun. He's not tied down. He's not locked in. So why at all would you trust an Eid Echad? So apparently, this diuk is incorrect. The Brisa is not inferring anything with respect to an Eid Echad. The Brisa was coming to tell us this halacha, this very halacha mentioned in the Brisa, which carries a chiddush. So the Reisha of the Brisa discussed two examples where an Isha is not to be believed, and in the Seifa where an Ish is not believed. Eloki itzrich, Rabbi Kiva itzrich. So the question was, what's the chiddush of the Mishnah, of this Brisa? Let's start from the top. An Isha is not Neman. When she says, my Yavam, meaning my brother-in-law passed away, which would allow me to marry a stranger. She's not believed. So what's the chiddush here? Eliki itzrich, the Rabbi Kiva itzrich. The chiddush is, even Lefi Rabbi Akiva doesn't work. Sakadai de chamina. Hoyel v'omer Akiva. Yesh mamze mechayav ilavin. Rabbi Akiva holds that even a union which involves a love is treated like a regular erva. Kiddushin doesn't work. The child produced from that union is a mamzer. So perhaps, in this case where she's coming and saying, look, I can go marry out, I don't need yibum. Ema perhaps will say, she is to be believed because she has a lot to lose. If it turns out to be incorrect, Ema chaysha kalkula de zara, maybe she's concerned that her children should not be mamzerim v'daika. This will prompt her to really look into the matter well, to ascertain that in fact her Yavam passed away and she's free to marry anybody. We'll treat it like the case in the Mishnah of the Ishas Ish remarrying. No, Kamash Mon, the Chiddush is no. Even though she has something to lose, but it's not to the same extent as the Ishas Ish remarrying by mistake. You know why? Well, you have a brackets here. If we read the brackets, we have the Svara, the Akalkula di do chaysha. She's more concerned about her own loss. Akalkula de zara le chaysha, as opposed to this case where she's not really losing much. There's no severe penalties like we find in the Mishnah, where she went and married somebody else. All those knasais, all those fines are applied. She becomes usher to both. In this case, we don't have it. And the fact that her child becomes affected, it's a concern, but not on the same level as if it concerns her person. So bottom line is the Mishnah, the Brisa here is telling us a halacha, a chiddush, that although in the Mishnah we find that an Isha is to be believed, we actually had it on Tzaddik Gimel and Beis. If the Isha herself comes and says, my husband died, we believe her and she goes and remarries because she wouldn't do it otherwise. She wouldn't do it if it wasn't true because she knows what's coming. She knows she'll be in deep trouble if it turns out that her testimony is unsubstantiated. But in this case, where she's just saying, look, I know I need Yibam, but the Yavam passed away. In this case, the consequences aren't so severe. Even if it turns out to be incorrect, at most it was just the Isra Lav, which doesn't really affect her. It doesn't make her usher on everybody, etc. So in this case, we don't believe her. Rava Amar, Eid Echad Neman bi Yevamo. He disagrees. He says even one Eid, not the Isha, the Eid Echad, is believed. If he says that the Yavam passed away and this Isha is free to marry out. You know why? Simple logic. Mikal v'chaymer. Le'isu koresi tarta. When it comes to allowing an Isha's Ish to remarry, such as the case in the Mishnah, the beginning of the Perek, you trust an Eid Echad. Le'isur lav l'kolshkin. Of course, if it's only involving a lav, such as Yevama marrying out, of course you trust an Eid Echad. Amalei hahum rabbanon l'Rava. So the Chacham turned to Rava. Well, I can oppose that way of thinking, that logic. I can undo that kavachomer. He atzmo teichiach. I can disprove it with the halacha pertaining to the Isha herself. Look, the Isur karisi tarta. An Isha comes and says, my husband passed away. You let her remarry, even though it involves a possible Isur karis. You trust her, but still Isur lav lo yitarta when it comes to the most recent case. My Yavam passed away. I want to marry out. You don't trust her. So apparently, one is not dependent on the other. Likewise, when it comes to an Eidechad, perhaps by the Eshes Ish we believe him, but not in the Yibum context. What would be the difference? As we explained earlier, so truthfully, why is the Isha herself not believed when she's being paid to herself from Yibum? If it's only a lav, why don't you trust her? Oh, because there's that underlying negius. There's that underlying motive. She perhaps wants to avoid the Yavam. The Kivan, the Zimnin, the Sanyale. Perhaps she dislikes the Yavam. Loy Daiko Minsaba. She's not going to necessarily delve into the facts deeply and truly ascertain that the Yavam's gone because she's trying to avoid him. Oh, so once you have that factor at play, Eidechad Nami, when it comes to the single Eid as well. True. Sometimes you believe him, but not in this case. Because remember, the whole Ne'emanos that we attribute to the Eidechad is based on the fact that the Isha will look into the matter further. In this case, perhaps she won't. Eidechad Nami, the Kivan, the Zimnan, the Sanile, perhaps she dislikes the Yavam and is trying to go the other way. Loy Daika Mitzvah, perhaps she will not look into the matter well enough, and therefore we can't substantiate this edus. So bottom line, this we had a shaila regarding B'yimater Yevamos l'shuk. When it comes to Eshes Ish, we believe the Eid Echad. We believe the Isha herself, who claims that her husband passed away, because that involves really, severe consequences. If, in fact, it turns out to be untrue. What about exempting her from Yibum? Can we trust the Isha? No. Can we trust the Eid Echad? Well, Rabbi held yes, but the challenger disagreed, and he says, look, here there's a new svara. There's the Sanyale component, which shakes up the testimony. And therefore we can't really rely on it as true. And in fact, that's what we paskin la'alacha. We don't believe in Eid Echad when it comes to be matar Yevamos l'shuk, but the place can bring down that b'shas adchak, b'shas igun. Sometimes we believe the Eid Echad. Zeh midrash dorash Abelezer ben Masya. So the last case in the Mishnah was a woman, her husband left town. She thought he passed away. She went and got engaged, kiddushin, to Shimon. Then husband shows up. She can just leave Shimon because there was no real interaction. And in fact, if Shimon decides to give her a get, which he didn't need to, but he gave her a get, that get is null and void. It doesn't have any impact on the Isha with respect to marrying a kohen. She's not considered a divorcee. And this is based on the pasuk, V'isha grusha me'isha, that the gerushin only applies if it's from her husband. But Shimon was actually not her husband. Amar Vida Marav. It's a pity. Havilei Rabbi Lezer lemidrash be'bar genisa. Rabbi Lezer could have used the same pasuk to apply a drasha, like a pearl, a chiddush, which we wouldn't otherwise have known. He could have done that, but instead, v'dorash be'chaspa. He used the pasuk to produce a concept which is like a simple concept, like a piece of pottery. It's sort of a wasted drasha. Meaning, you need to tell me that a non-husband cannot issue a get, or if he issues a get, it's null and void, has no impact. Isn't that posh? Isn't that simple? He should have used the drasha for something better, which is actually a chiddush. My maganisa, for instance, what kind of pearl did you have in mind? The Sanya, Isha grusha me isha. What does the pasuk have to say? Isha grusha me isha. Shouldn't marry a kohen. Well, of course. From whom will she get divorced if not from her husband? The pasuk is telling you a chiddush, a chumrah. Afilu lenisgar she'ela me isha. Even if the gerushin only pertained to her husband, pesula lekahuna, it will impact her with respect to marrying a kohen. So what's this case? Says Rashi about 4 or 5 lines above our position in the Gemara. Kigoin, for instance, Shekasav Laget. He wrote her a get, and he's playing games. He wrote a get, but he doesn't want to give her the privilege of marrying somebody else. Okay, he had his fellow. He's getting divorced, but he can't handle it. She'll marry somebody else. So he says, "V'amarla hariyat megudeshes mimeni." Look, you're divorced from me. V'iat muteres l'kol adam, but you can't marry anybody else. Shalin is gashu d'zu legamri. So this is not really a proper gerushin. Ella meisha nifrida. She's separated from him, but she's not really megureshes. Still, we treat it as a get. Some Rishonim learn midrabanan. As Rashi continues, psula lekuna imeis vuta lenasa. If this fellow eventually passed away, which allows her to get married. The only way she can get married is if he passes away, because it wasn't really a get. But still, we treat it as a get because it smells like a get, it looks like a get. It has all the components of a get, and we don't allow her to marry a kohen because she appears like a gerusha. Continues the Gemara, v'hainu reich haget, the poisel bekuna. This is the reich haget, discussed several times in Shas. Something that smells like a get, it appears like a get. We treat it as a get with reference to pisul kahuna. So you should have used this, the pasuk for this drasha, to tell you that this type of thing can impact an isha. Isha grusha me isha, even if it's only a gerushin from the husband, but it's not really a proper gerushin. It still affects her with respect to kahuna. If it's the Rabbanan, so perhaps this pasuk is just this drasha is just an asmach or support to this concept. Continues the Mishnah. Mi shaholcha ishte limdines hayam. This fellow's wife went out of town. So this time it wasn't the husband; it was the wife who disappears. Bo v'amrle, they come and they tell him, "We have sad news for you. Meise ishtecha, your wife passed away." And he goes ahead and he marries her sister. V'nosa sachoisa. So Reuven was married to Rachel. He thought she passed away. He married her sister Leah. And what happens? And then Rachel shows up. Rachel can go back to Reuven, no concerns. So although he had what to do with Leah, it doesn't affect Rachel's status whatsoever. It's different than a wife, an ishes ish, who goes and marries somebody else. In that case, if it turns out to be mistaken, she can't come back home, we fine her. But this doesn't apply here. The Gemara will go into this halach and explain what the difference is. So Rachel can return to Reuven, umutar b'kroiv shniya, and we treat Leah as a stranger, never married to Reuven, because it wasn't really a valid marriage. One cannot marry two sisters. So since it turns out that he was really married to Rachel, his marriage with Leah was totally void, totally null and void. Umutar b'kroiv shniya, he can marry the relatives of Leah, something which he wouldn't be able to do if she was really his wife. V'shniya muteres b'kroivav, and likewise Leah can marry any relative of Reuven that she chooses. If eventually Rachel does pass away, mutar b'shniya, he can go and marry Leah. Amrloi meisa ishtay. So they tell him, your wife Rachel passed away. V'nosas achos, he goes and marries Leah. V'achach amrloi, and then they come and tell him, kayamas hoisa umeisa. Actually, she was alive when you married Leah, but then she passed away. So what is the status of their children? Children born to Rachel, to Reuven and Leah, second wife. Havlad Risha, mamzer. Child born while Rachel was still alive is a mamzer. V'achar in a mamzer. Child born after Rachel passed away is a fine child. He's not a mamzer because once Rachel passes away, Reuven's marriage to Leah is fine. Okay, now we're going to have Shittas Rabbi Yossi, which isn't really going to be explained in our Mishnah. The Gemara later on in the parak will elaborate on this. We'll just say the words. Rabbi Yossi Omer, we have to work with the following formula. Kol she'poisel adei acherim, poisel adei atzmoim. If it creates psul to others, it affects him as well. V'chol she'enoi poisel adei acherim, if it doesn't affect psul to others, enoi poisel adei atzmoim, it doesn't affect him as well. The Gemara will explain this passage. Getting back to the beginning of the Mishnah. Reuven married to Rachel. Rachel disappears. Reuven goes and marries Rachel's sister Leah. Rachel returns. No problem. She goes back to Reuven as if nothing happened. Says the Gemara, Va'af agav de ozel ishtay v'gisoy l'mdinas hayam. Let's assume that the case in the Mishnah will cover this scenario as well. Leah was a married woman. She wasn't unmarried. She was married to, let's call him Shimon, not Reuven's brother. Okay, Reuven to Rachel. Rachel's sister Leah was married to a stranger, Shimon. So the Mishnah seems to be covering this case as well. Leah was married, and Ishtay v'Gisay, and Rachel, who is Reuven's wife, and Gisai, Shimon, who is Reuven's brother-in-law, his wife's sister's husband, they both were gone. And then word arrived that Rachel passed away. So Reuven figures, okay, he can marry Leah because they also heard about Shimon having passed away. Okay, so there was a double tragedy. Rachel, Reuven's wife, passed away. And they also heard about Shimon, Leah's husband, passing away, which allows Reuven and Leah to get together. So even this case would be included in the Mishnah's halacha that if it turns out to be false, both rumors were false. Rachel was alive, and Shimon, who was Leah's husband, was alive. Still, Rachel can go back to Reuven. And that's a chiddush, because in this case, the Hani Nesuim, because this marriage between Reuven and Leah accomplished something. It had an effect. It had ramifications. The Mitzra, Eishas Kisai, because it created Isser to Leah, the wife of his brother-in-law Shimon, Agisai, who can no longer marry, can't go back. She can't go back to Shimon. Right? We know an Eishas Ish who went over to another husband, she can't go back home. So even though Isser was generated between the other couple, still we say it doesn't impact Reuven's status. Sure, Leah is usher to Shimon because she was involved with Reuven, new husband. But still, Ishtay Sharya, Reuven himself remains unaffected. We sort of split the ramification. She is impacted, but not Reuven and Rachel. Rachel can go back to Reuven. But I mean, we don't say just because Leah became usher to Shimon as a result of this unfortunate mix-up. To the usher Ishtay love, Rachel should become usher on Reuven. No. We view the story from different angles in terms of the Eishas Ish mishap, severe ramifications. Or in terms of the man who happened to get involved with his sister-in-law, it doesn't affect him. That's the halacha. The man doesn't get affected, and he can go back to Rachel. Lema masnissen deloik Rabbi Kiva. It would seem perhaps that our Mishnah is not following Rabbi Kiva's shita. Why? The Rabbi Kiva, because according to him, we have a problem on our hands. Havila achais gerushasai. It would seem that Rabbi Kiva holds that because Reuven was involved with Leah as married, he has to issue her a get. Right? Similar to the halacha in the Mishnah, that the Eishas Ish went and remarried by mistake, she needs a get from the new husband as well as the old husband. They more explained because it looks like she was married to the new husband. We don't want her just to walk away. She needs a get. Now, once Leah needs a get from Reuven should not go ahead and retake Rachel because it appears like she's Achos Gerushasai, sister of his divorcee who's asked her to marry, the Sanya. As we're going to see in the following brisa, that a get would be issued in this case. Kol arayisha b'Torah ain't tzrichos imenu get. Any isha interacts improperly with a man. There's no get involved. You just walk away. Chutz, except for the following case. We had this brisa a couple of days ago. Chutz meishes ish shenis al pi bezdin. That's our Mishnah. An Eid Echad arrives. Your husband passed away. She goes and remarries. It turns out to be false. She needs a get from that second husband as well. Because it appears like it was a legitimate marriage. You can't just walk away from a legitimate marriage. So with the Rabbana, she needs a get. For Rabbi Kiva Moisev, he adds two more cases. Likewise, a person marries wife of his brother, mistakenly gets involved with that type of isha, or mistakenly gets involved with his wife's sister, a get has to be issued. And the Gemara figures that it would apply to our story as well. He would have to issue a get to Leah, in which case Rachel and Reuven is a problematic match because Rachel is achayis gerushasai to Reuven. By a get, and once Rabbi Kiva requires a get, in this case, it would be also on him because if Reuven issues a get to Leah, right, that's the case. She's the achayis isha, right? issues a get to the Achos Isha, how could he go and retake Rachel, who is now, at least she looks like Achos Gerushasai? Dahavi la Achos Gerushasai. Answers the Gemara, no. It doesn't apply in this case. V'lav itmar lo. Haven't we learned a pshat on that brayso? Amar Gittel, Amar B'chir, Bar Yosef, Amar Rab. Ha'ishes ach echidami. When Rakiva says that ishes ach needs a get, what's the case? Only in the following case. Kigoin shekidesh achav es ha'isha. We have Reuben and Shimon. This time they're brothers. So, Shimon was Mekadesh an Isha, not married, Mekadesh. V'holach l'bdina sayam. Shimon disappears. V'shama shemes achav. Reuben hears that Shimon passed away. V'amad v'noses ishtay, and went and married. Shimon's wife. For the sake of Yibum, thinking that he's doing a great mitzvah of Yibum, it turns out her husband is alive and well. In this case, Rakiva says, look, Reuven has to give her a get before he lets go. Why? The Amr Inchi, people might say that this marriage between Reuven and Leah was a legitimate marriage. How could that be? She's an erva. She's an Eisha. No, because Hach Kama, this first fellow, her real husband, Shimon, who did Kiddushin, Tno Hava Lebe Kiddushin. He stipulated some sort of condition into their Kiddushin, which didn't really pan out. So the Kiddushin between Leah and Shimon was never really implemented. It wasn't really actualized. V'hai Shaper Nosif, in which case Reuven's marriage with Leah was perfect, was legitimate. So you can't just let her walk away. Right? So to address this concern, this Maris Ayin, you have to do a get. So that's by the Ishasach. The same with the other case. V'hayachas Ishanami. In the case of the fellow marrying his wife's sister, there as well. I'll explain to you why a get is needed. Heichidami, what's the case? Kiddush. Again, we're speaking not about marriage. Kiddush as Isha. Reuven was Mekadesh Rachel, not marriage, but Kiddushin. V'olcha l'bdina sayam. And Rachel disappears. V'shama shemesa, hears that she died. Amad v'nosas achoyse. Then he went and married Leah, her sister. Here as well, he can't just let go of Leah without a get. You know why? Although, really, she doesn't need a get. She's an erva. Kiddushin doesn't apply to an erva, but people might misunderstand what happened. People might say, this was a proper marriage. How could that be? Because Hakamaisa, the first one, Rachel, Tanai Havale B'Kiddusha. There was a Tanai, there was a condition included in the condition between Reuven and Rachel, which never really materialized. In which case she was never really his Kala. Shaper Nosev. And then when he married Leah, it was a proper marriage. So you can't just let go without a get. And that's why Rabbi Kiva says in these cases a get is needed. But it doesn't really apply to our Mishnah at all. It's not applicable. Because in our Mishnah, we're speaking, there was marriage. Ela Nisuin, but there was marriage involved. Reuven was married to Rachel. She disappears. He goes and he marries Leah. He was married to Rachel. It wasn't just Kiddushin that you can say, well, perhaps it was a Tanai, it didn't really materialize. It was marriage. Can you say there was a Tanai in the Nesuin? That's not plausible. It's not something we would theorize. Rashi says a person doesn't make a Tanai in the Nesuin. So if she was married to Reuven, there's no way that Reuven could go marry her sister. So if it turns out to be false, it turns out that the marriage was not a proper marriage. Rachel was alive, and Leah was the Achos Isha. So you just walk away. There's no concerns that we are addressing. There's no misunderstanding. There's no misinterpretation. So in this case, since there's no get between Reuven and Leah, there's nothing wrong with Reuven retaking Rachel as his real legitimate wife because she's not a Chayz Gurishaseh. Amalei Rav Ashtar of Kahana. Have a kasha on the Mishnah. Rabbi Kiva. Once you tell me that the Mishnah can follow Rabbi Kiva, why didn't the Mishnah provide another illustration, another way to present this halach? Listening nami chamoise. we should have mentioned chamois, mother-in-law as well. So what happened was, his wife went out of town. Word arrives that his wife passed away. He goes ahead and marries his wife's mother. Because we know that Rabbi Kiva holds the issur of mother-in-law only applies while wife is around. But after his wife passes away, the sreifa, the burning penalty applied to a mother-in-law, is not applicable here. So that could be a case in the Mishnah. We have the case of the two sisters. We can have a case of mother-in-law as well. He thought his wife passed away. He married her mother. It turns out his wife was around. The Sanya. Where do we find that Rabbi Kiva allows this? Pasuk says, "Ba'ish yisrafu oisoi ve'esen." One is not allowed to marry an isha with her mother, and if they should do so, the penalty is streifa. Be'esh yisrafu oisoi, the man, ve'eshen. Ve'eshen. What does ve'eshen mean? Oisoi ve'es achas mehen. Can't say that his wife suffers. His wife is perfectly innocent. So eshen, in Greek, hen means one. So the man and the one. In this case, it's his wife's mother who committed the Avera. He learns ve'eshen is plural, referring to the man and both of them. What does both of them mean? Oh, now there are two ways to learn the Brisa. We have Abaye and Rava. According to Abaye, this works out. The Amar Mashma is Dorsh Nikbenai. It isn't really a halachic nafkamina between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel. It's just a question of where to source the halacha. So everyone agrees that mother-in-law is asr, and likewise, mother-in-law's mother is also asr. The question is where we learn this from. The Rishmol Savar Chaduksiv. According to Rishmol, it's this pasuk here is speaking about one woman, wife's mother. How do we know that his mother-in-law's mother is also asr? That's learned from a different pasuk in Sanhedrin. So Chaduksiv, in this pasuk we only have reference to the mother-in-law herself. Rabbi Kiva Savar Tarti Ksiv, it says in this pasuk, ve'eshen is a plural referring to both women, mother-in-law and mother-in-law's mother. Okay, so according to this shopper, everything's good. We don't really have a kasha on our Mishnah because they're not really discussing halacha. It's just a question of drasha. But according to Rava, the Amar says a bit differently than Abaye. There is a halachic difference between the two approaches. What is the difference? What happens if wife passes away? Is mother-in-law mutter or not? According to Rabbi Kiva, yes. According to Rabbi Shmuel, no. How do we see this in their words? Let's go back for a couple lines. Be'esh yisrafu oisoi ve'eshen. That's the pasuk, right? Rabbi Shmuel says oisoi ve'es achas mehen. Even if it's just him, the man who committed the issur, and one of them, one of which the pasuk discussed wife and mother-in-law. So if only the mother-in-law is around, it's also asr. Because she's asr even after wife passes away. It's an all-time asr. Rabbi Kiva says, he's only liable if everyone's around. Him and both of them. Which them? Wife and mother-in-law. Because after wife passes away, there's no streifa by mother-in-law. So according to this, listening, why couldn't the Mishnah discuss this case as well? His wife disappears. He figures she passed away. He married her mother, which he thought was mutter because his wife was no longer here. And it turns out the whole thing was a mistake. Amar Lei, so Rav Kahana responds, no. Nehi de mi'ata kra misreifa, just because the pasuk exempts her from sreifa, me'isura mi'mata kra, who's to say that it's mutter? Torah wasn't mamai from isser. There's no sreifa, but it's still asr, and therefore it's not applicable to our Mishnah. Asks the Gemara the big question on the sukkah. Here we have a whole Mishnah, beginning of the Perek. Anisha thought her husband passed away. She went and married somebody else. Her husband shows up. She's in deep trouble. She can't even go back to her real husband. But in our Mishnah, we have a similar case. Two sisters. He thought his wife disappeared. He thought she passed away. He went and married her sister. Turns out his wife is around. He can just go back to her. Why doesn't Rachel become Aser on account of this confusion? Why didn't Rachel become Aser due to her sister's involvement with her husband? Similar to the case of the Isha whose husband disappeared and she went and married somebody else. Big difference. Loy dami, you can't compare. Ishtai de b'mezid. Asiru midiraisa. By the Isha's Ish, the case in the beginning of the parak, where if she would have done this b'mezid, she would have committed znus willingly, went over to another husband, b'mezid, midiraisa, would have been asa. Asiru midiraisa. And therefore, b'shoigi, even though it was by mistake, goes b'rabban applied exera, be more careful next time. As opposed to Achos Isha, the case in our Mishnah, the two sisters, the b'mezid lo yasiru midiraisa, even if this fellow would have gotten involved with her sister knowingly, willingly, it wouldn't affect Rachel. B'shoigig lo ygozu rabbanon. Certainly, if it was only b'shoigig, there's no gzera applied. You could just go back and retake Rachel. Umen hala delay asira. In fact, how do we know that Rachel is unaffected by her husband getting involved with her sister? The Sanya Oisa, the pasuk says, if one gets involved with an Isha and Isha Ish, Oisa, he makes her Aser on her husband. Oisa, Shchivasa Isarta. Yeah. Her personal experience makes her Aser on her husband. But Ve'ein Shchivasa Chisa Isarta, but an incident with her sister doesn't affect her whatsoever. Perhaps we could have produced an Isser. We find that if a person gets involved with an Isser Kal, which Rashi says is actually a reference to an Ish's Ish. The Gemara soon will explain why it's called Isser Kal. What happens? Terrible results. Ne'asara Isser, the husband who actually makes her Asr, becomes Asr on her. She can't go back to him, as we find in the beginning of the parak. Certainly in the case of the two sisters, Mokim Shabal Isur Chomer, a fellow got involved with an Isur Chomer, Achos Ishtai, which has no heter. Right? Ish's Ish is a temporary Isur. As long as the husband's around, Achos Isha is for all time. Certainly in that case, shouldn't we assume Shenesar Isur, that the first sister, who's really generating her Isur, right? She's generating the Isur on her sister. Right, Rachel, the real wife of Reuven, is generating the Isra on Leah. Certainly, Ein Adin Shenesar Isa, shouldn't we say that Rachel gets affected? No, but we have a pasuk, Isa. Dafka, her personal experience affects her, but not something external. Okay, so bottom line is, an Eidechad comes and says, this Yevama can marry out. Is she believed? It would seem, according to the Maskanas, the Gemara, the Eidechad is not believed. The whole point of the Nemanis is because we rely on her personal efforts to investigate the matter and confirm the facts. In the case of the Petur Yibam, perhaps she'll be a little bit lax in her efforts because she wants to avoid the Yavam to begin with. We have a Mishnah where a fellow mistakenly married his wife's sister. The bottom line is, nobody's affected. He can just go back home. There's no Isser on this Ish and this Isha. Reuven can retake Rachel to 120. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.